Hello, and welcome back to Baby Elias's stories. We now return to The Fifth Elephant by Terry Pratchett. Part 2. It is in the nature of the universe that the person who always keeps you waiting 10 minutes will, on the day you are 10 minutes tardy, have been ready 10 minutes early, and will make a point of not mentioning this. "Sorry we're late, sir," said Vimes as they entered the oblong office. "Oh, are you late?" said Lord Veterinary, looking up from his paperwork. "I really hadn't noticed. Nothing serious, I trust?" "The Fools' Guild caught fire, sir," said Carrot. "Many casualties?" "No, sir." "Well, that is a blessing," said Lord Veterinary carefully. He put down his pen. "Now, what do we have to discuss?" He pulled another document towards him and read it swiftly. I see that the new traffic division is having the desired effect." He indicated a large pile of paper. "I am getting any amount of complaints from the Carterers and Drovers' Guild. Well done. Do pass on my thanks to Sergeant Cullen and his team." "I will, sir." "I see in one day they clamped 17 carts, 10 horses, 18 oxen and 1 duck. It was parked illegally, sir." "Indeed. However, a strange pattern seems to emerge, sir. Many of the carters say that they were not in fact parked, but had merely halted while an extremely old and extremely ugly lady crossed the road extremely slowly." "That's their story, sir." "They know she was an old lady by her constant litany on the lines of 'Oh, dearie me, my poor old feet,' and similar expressions." "Certainly sounds like an old lady to me, sir," said Vimes, his face wooden. "Quite so. What is rather strange is that several of them then report seeing the old lady subsequently legging it away along an alley rather fast. I'd discount this, of course, were it not for the fact that the lady has apparently been seen crossing another street, very slowly, some distance away shortly afterwards. Something of a mystery, Vimes." Vimes put his hand over his eyes. "It's one I intend to solve quite quickly, sir." The patrician nodded and made a short note on the list in front of him. As he went to move it aside, he uncovered a much grubbier, much folded scrap of paper. He picked up 2 letter knives and, using them fastidiously, unfolded the paper and inched it across the desk towards Vimes. "Do you know anything about this?" he said. Vimes read, in large, round, crayoned letters. "Dear Kerr, the cruelty to homeless dogs in this city is a disgrace. What are the watch doing about it? Sined the leak against cruelty to dogs." "Not a thing," he said. "My clerk says that one like it is pushed under the door most nights," said the patrician. "Apparently, no one is seen." "Do you want me to investigate?" said Vimes. It shouldn't be hard to find someone in this city who dribbles when he writes and spells even worse than Carrot. Thank you, sir, said Carrot. None of the guards report noticing anyone, said the patrician. Is there any group in Ankh-Morpork particularly interested in the welfare of dogs? I doubt it, sir. Then I shall ignore it, pro tem, said Veterinary. He let the soggy letter splash into the waste paper basket. On to more pressing matters, he said briskly. Now then, what do you know about Bonk? Vimes stared. There was a polite cough from Carrot. The river or the town, sir? He said. The patrician smiled. Ah, Captain, you have long ago ceased to surprise me. Yes, I was referring to the town. It's one of the major towns in Uberwald, sir, said Carrot. Exports, precious metals, leather, timber, and of course fat from the deep fat mines at Schmaltzberg. There's a place called Bonk, said Vimes, still marvelling at the speed with which they'd got here from a damp letter about dogs. Strictly speaking, sir, it's more correctly pronounced Beyonk, said Carrot. Even so. And in Beyonk, sir, Morpork sounds exactly like their word for an item of ladies' underwear, said Carrot. There's only so many syllables in the world, when you think about it. How do you know all this stuff, Carrot? Oh, you pick it up, sir, here and there. Really? So exactly which item of... Something extremely important will be taking place there in a few weeks, said Lord Veterinary. Something which, I have to add, is vital to the future prosperity of Ankh-Morpork. The crowning of the Low King, said Carrot. Vimes stared from him to the patrician and back again. Is there some kind of circular that goes around which doesn't get as far as me? He said. The dwarf community has been talking about little else for months, sir. Really, said Vimes. You mean the riots? Those fights every night in the dwarf bars? Captain Carrot is correct, Vimes. It will be a grand occasion, attended by representatives of many governments, and from various Uberwald principalities. Of course, because the Low King only rules those areas of Uberwald that are below ground, his favour is valuable. Borogravia and Genua will be there, without a doubt, and probably even Klatch. Klatch? But they're even further from Uberwald than we are. What are they bothering to go for? He paused for a moment, and then added, I'm being stupid. Where's the money? I beg your pardon, Commander. That's what my old sergeant used to say when he was puzzled, sir. Find out where the money is, and you've got it half solved. Veterinary stood up and walked over to the big window with his back to them. A large country, Uberwald, he said, apparently addressing the glass. Dark, mysterious, ancient. Huge untapped reserves of coal and iron ore, said Carrot, and fat, of course. The best candles, lamp oils, and soap come ultimately from the Schmaltzberg deposits. Why, we've got our own slaughterhouse, haven't we? Ankh-Morpork uses a great many candles, sir. It certainly doesn't use much soap, said Vimes. There are so many uses for fats and tallow, sir. We couldn't possibly supply ourselves. Ah, said Vimes. The patrician sighed. Obviously, I hope that we may strengthen our trading links with the various nations within Uberwald, he said. The situation there is volatile in the extreme. Do you know much about Uberwald, Commander Vimes? Vimes, whose knowledge of geography was microscopically detailed within 5 miles of Ankh-Morpork, and merely microscopic beyond that, nodded uncertainly. Only that it's not really a country, said Veterinary. It's rather more what you get before you get countries, said Carrot. It's mainly fortified towns and fiefdoms with no real boundaries and lots of forest in between. There's always some sort of feud going on. There's no law apart from whatever the local lords enforce, and banditry of all kinds is rife. So unlike the home life of our own dear city, said Vimes, not quite under his breath. The patrician gave him an impassive glance. In Uberwald, the dwarves and trolls haven't settled their old grievances, Carrot continued. There are large areas controlled by feudal vampire or werewolf clans, and there are also tracts with much higher than normal background magic. It is a chaotic place, indeed, and you'd hardly think you were in this century of the fruit bat. It is to be hoped that things will improve, however, and Uberwald will, happily, be joining the community of nations. Vimes and Veterinary exchanged looks. Sometimes Carrot sounded like a civics essay written by a stunned choir boy. Well put, said the patrician at last. But until that joysome day, Uberwald remains a mystery inside a riddle wrapped in an enigma. Let me see if I've got this right, said Vimes. Uberwald is like this big suet pudding that everyone suddenly noticed, and now at this coronation as an excuse, we've all got to rush there with knife, fork and spoon to shovel as much on our plates as possible. Your grasp of political reality is masterly, Vimes. You lack only the appropriate vocabulary. Ankh-Morpork must send a representative, obviously, an ambassador, as it were. You're not suggesting I should go to this affair, are you? Said Vimes. Oh, I couldn't send the commander of the city watch, said Lord Veterinary. Most of the Uberwald countries have no concept of a modern civil peacekeeping authority. Vimes relaxed. I'm sending the Duke of Ankh instead. Vimes sat bolt upright. They are mostly feudal systems, Veterinary went on. They set great store by rank. I'm not being ordered to go to Uberwald. Ordered, Your Grace? Veterinary looked shocked and concerned. Good heavens, I must have misunderstood Lady Sybil. She told me yesterday that a holiday a long way from Ankh-Morpork would do you the world of good. You spoke to Sybil? At the reception for the new president of the Tailors' Guild, yes. I believe you left early. You were called away. Some emergency, I understand. Lady Sybil happened to mention how you seem to be, as she put it, constantly on the job. And one thing led to another. Oh dear, I do hope I haven't caused some marital misunderstanding. I can't leave the city now, of all times, said Vimes desperately. There's so much to do. That is exactly why Sybil says you ought to leave the city, said Veterinary. But there's the new training school. Ticking over nicely now, sir, said Carrot. The whole carrier pigeon network is a complete mess. More or less sorted out, sir. Now we've changed their feed. Besides, the clacks seem to be functioning very well. We've got to get the river watch set up. Can't do much for a week or two, sir, until we've dredged up the boat. The drains at the Chitterling station. The drains at the Chitterling Street station are... I've got the plumbers working on it, sir. Vimes knew that he had lost. He had lost as soon as Sybil was involved, because she was always a reliable siege engine against the walls of his defences. But there was such a thing as going down fighting. You know I'm not good at diplomatic talk, he said. On the contrary, Vimes, you appear to have amazed the diplomatic corps here in Ankh-Morpork, said Lord Veterinary. They're not used to plain speech. It confuses them. What was it you said to the Istanzian ambassador last month? He rifled through the papers on his desk. Let me see. The complaint is here somewhere. Oh, yes. On the matter of military incursions across the Slipner River, you indicated that further transgressions would involve him personally, that is to say, the ambassador, and I quote, going home in an ambulance. I'm sorry about that, sir, but it had been a long day, and he was really getting on my... Since when their armed forces have pulled back? Since when their armed forces have pulled back so far that they are nearly in the next country, said Lord Veterinary, moving the paper aside. Shh. I have to say that your observation complied only with the general thrust of my view in this matter, but was, at least, succinct. Succinct, marked by compact, precise expression without wasted words. Succinct. I have to say that your observation complied only with the general thrust of my view in this matter, but was, at least, succinct. Apparently, you also looked at the ambassador in a very threatening way. It was only the way I usually look. To be sure, happily, in Uberwald, you will only need to look friendly. Ah, but you don't want me saying things like, how about selling us all your fat really cheap, do you? Said Vimes desperately. You will not be required to do any negotiating, Vimes. That will be dealt with by one of my clerks, who will set up the temporary embassy and discuss such matters with his opposite numbers among the courts of Uberwald. All clerks speak the same language. You will simply be as ducal as you can. And, of course, you will take a retinue, a staff, Veterinary added, seeing Vimes's blank look. He sighed. People to go with you. I suggest Sergeant Angua, Sergeant Detritus, and Corporal Littlebottom. Ah, said Carrot, nodding encouragingly. Sorry, said Vimes. I think there must have been a whole piece of conversation just then that I must have missed. A werewolf, a troll, and a dwarf, said Carrot. Ethnic minorities, sir. But in Uberwald, they are ethnic majorities, said Lord Veterinary. All three officers come from there originally, I believe. Their presence will speak volumes. So far it hasn't sent me a postcard, said Vimes. And I'd rather take... Sir, it will show people in Uberwald that Ankh-Morpork is a multicultural society, you see, said Carrot. Oh, I see. People like us. People you can do business with, said Vimes gloomily. Sometimes, Veterinary said testily. It really does seem to me that the culture of cynicism in the watch is insufficient, said Vimes. There was silence. All right, he sighed. I'd better go off and polish the knobs on my coronet, hadn't I? The ducal coronet, if I remember my heraldry, does not have knobs on it. It is decidedly spiky, said the patrician, pushing across the desk a small pile of papers topped by a gold-edged invitation card. Good. I will have a clax sent immediately. You will be more fully briefed later. Do give my regards to the Duchess. And now, please, do not let me detain you further. He always says that, muttered Vimes, as the two men hurried down the stairs. He knows I don't like being married to a duchess. I thought you and Lady Sybil... Oh, being married to Sybil is fine. Fine, said Vimes hurriedly. It's just the duchess bit I don't like. Where is everyone tonight? Corporal Littlebottom's on pigeon duty. Detritus is on night patrol with Swires, and Angwer's on special duty in the shades, sir. You remember? With Nobby? Oh, gods, yes. Well, when they come in tomorrow, you'd better get them to report to me. Incidentally, get that bloody wig off Nobby and hide it, will you? Vimes leafed through the paperwork. I've never heard of the low king of the dwarves. I thought that king in dwarfish just meant a sort of senior engineer. Ah, well, the low king is rather special, said Carrot. Why? Well, it all starts with the scone of stone, sir. The what? Would you mind a little detour on the way back to the yard, sir? It'll make things clearer. A young woman stood on a corner in the shades. Her general stance indicated that she was in the specialized patois of the area, a lady in waiting. Patois, a dialect other than the standard or literary dialect. Patois, uneducated or provincial speech. The characteristic special language of an occupational or social group. Patois. Her general stance indicated that she was, in the specialized patois of the area, a lady in waiting. To be more precise, a lady in waiting for Mr. Right, or at least Mr. Right amount. She idly swung her handbag. This was a very recognizable signal for anyone with the brains of a pigeon. A member of the Thieves' Guild would have passed carefully by on the other side of the lane, giving her nothing more than a gentlemanly and above all non-aggressive nod. Even the less polite freelance thieves who lurked in this area would have thought twice before eyeing the handbag. The Seamstresses Guild operated a very swift and non-reversible kind of justice. The skinny body of Dun-It Duncan, however, did not have the brains of a pigeon. The little man had been watching the bag like a cat for fully 5 minutes, and now the very thought of its contents had hypnotized him. He could practically taste the money. He rose on his toes, lowered his head, dashed out of the alley, grabbed the bag and got several inches before the world exploded behind him and he ended up flat in the mud. Something right by his ear started to drool, and there was a long, very long drawn-out growl. Not changing in tone at all, just unrolling a deep promise of what would happen if he tried to move. He heard footsteps, and out of the corner of his eyes saw a swirl of lace. "Oh, done it," said a voice. "Bag snatching? That's a bit low, isn't it? Even for you? You could have got really hurt." "It's only Duncan, miss. He'll be no trouble. You can let him up." The weight was removed from Duncan's back. He heard something pad off into the gloom of an alley. "I done it! I done it!" said the little thief desperately as Corporal Nobbs helped him to his feet. "Yes, I know you did. I saw you," said Nobby. "And you know what'd happen to you if the Thieves' Guild spotted you? You'd be dead in the river with no time off for good behaviour." "They hate me 'cause I'm so good," said Duncan through his matted beard. "Here, you know the robbery at old Jolson's last month? I done that." "That's right, Duncan. You done that. And that hole at the gold vaults last week, I done that too. It wasn't Coldface and his boys." "No, it was you, wasn't it, Duncan? And that job at the goldsmith's that everyone says Crunchy Ron done. You done it, did you?" "'S right," said Duncan. "And it was you what stole fire from the gods too, wasn't it, Duncan?" said Nobby, grinning evilly under his wig. "Yeah, that was me," Duncan nodded. He sniffed. "I was a bit younger then, of course." He peered short-sightedly at Nobby Nobbs. "Why've you got a dress on, Nobby?" "It's hush-hush, Duncan." "Ah, right." Duncan shifted uneasily. "You couldn't spare me a bob or two, could you, Nobby? I ain't eaten for 2 days." Small coins gleamed in the dark. "Now push off," said Corporal Nobbs. "Thanks, Nobby. You got any unsolved crimes, you know where to find me." Duncan lurched off into the night. Sergeant Angua appeared behind Nobby, buckling on her breastplate. "Poor old devil," she said. "He was a good thief in his day," said Nobby, taking a notebook out of his handbag and jotting down a few lines. "Kind of you to help him," said Angua. "Well, I can get the money back out of petty cash," said Nobby. "And now we know who did the bullion job, don't we? That'll be a feather in my cap with Mr. Vimes." "Bonnet, Nobby." "What?" "Your bonnet, Nobby. It's got a rather fetching band of flowers around it." "Oh, yeah." "It's not that I'm complaining," said Angua. "But when we were assigned this job, I thought it was me who was going to be the decoy, and you who was going to be the backup, Nobby." "Yeah, but what with you being—" Nobby's expression creased as he edged his way into unfamiliar linguistic territory. "Morphologic—ally gifted." "A werewolf, Nobby. I know the word." "Right. Well, obviously, you'd be a lot better at lurking, and obviously it's not right, women having to act as decoys in police work." Angua hesitated, as she so often did when attempting to talk to Nobby on difficult matters, and waved her hands in front of her as if trying to shape the invisible dough of her thoughts. "It's just that, people might," she began. Well, you know what people call men who wear wigs and gowns, don't you?" "Yes, miss." "You do?" "Yes, miss." "Lawyers, miss." "Good. Yes. Good," said Angua slowly. "Now try another one." "Actors, miss." Angua gave up. "You look good in taffeta, Nobby," she said. Taffeta, a crisp, plain, woven, lustrous fabric of various fibers used especially for women's clothing. Taffeta. You look good in taffeta, Nobby, she said. You don't think it makes me look too fat? Angua sniffed. Oh no, she said quietly. I thought I'd better put scent on for very similitude, said Nobby quickly. What? Oh, Angua shook her head, took another breath. I can smell something else. That's surprising, 'cause this stuff's a bit on the pungent side, and frankly, I don't think Lily of the Valley is supposed to smell like this. It's not perfume, but the lavender stuff they had you could clean brass with. Can you get back to the Chitterling station by yourself, Nobby? Said Angua. Despite her rising panic, she mentally added, after all, what could happen? I mean, really. Yes, miss. There's something I'd better sort out. Angua hurried away, the new scent filling her nostrils. It would have to be powerful to combat eau de nobs, and it was. Oh, it was. Not here, she thought. Not now. Not him. The running man swung along a branch, wet with snow, and managed at last to lower himself onto a branch belonging to the next tree. That took him a long way from the stream. How good was their sense of smell? Pretty damn good, he knew. But this good? He got out of the stream onto another overhanging branch. If they followed the banks, and they'd be bright enough to do that, they'd surely never know he'd left the stream. There was a howl, away to the left. He headed right, into the gloom of the forest. Vimes heard Carrot scrabble around in the gloom, and the sound of a key in the lock. I thought the campaign for equal heights was running this place now, he said. It's so hard to find volunteers, said Carrot, ushering him through the low door and lighting a candle. I come in every day just to keep an eye on things, but no one else seems very interested. I can't imagine why, said Vimes, looking around the Dwarf Bread Museum. The one positive thing you could say about the bread products around him was that they were probably as edible now as they had been on the day they were baked. Forged was a better term. Dwarf bread was made as a meal of last resort, and also as a weapon and a currency. Dwarves were not, as far as Vimes knew, religious in any way, but the way they thought about bread came close. There was a tinkle and a scrabbling noise somewhere in the gloom. Rats, said Carrot. They never stop trying to eat dwarf bread. Poor things. Ah, here we are. The scone of stone. A replica, of course. Vimes stared at the misshapen thing on its dusty display stand. It was vaguely scone-like, but only if someone pointed this out to you beforehand. Otherwise, the term, a lump of rock, was pretty accurate. It was about the size and shape of a well-sat-on cushion. There were a few fossilized courants visible. My wife rests her feet on something like that when she's had a long day, he said. It's 1,500 years old, said Carrot, with something like awe in his voice. I thought this was the replica. Well, yes, but it's a replica of a very important thing, sir, said Carrot. Vimes sniffed. The air had a certain pungent quality. Smells strongly of cats in here, doesn't it? I'm afraid they get in after the rat, sir. A rat who's nibbled on dwarf bread tends not to be able to run very fast. Vimes lit a cigar. Carrot gave it a look of uncertain disapproval. We do thank people for not smoking in here, sir, he said. Why, you don't know they're not going to, said Vimes. He leaned against the display cabinet. All right, Captain. Why am I really going to? Bonk. I don't know a lot about diplomacy, but I do know it's never just about one thing. What's the low king? Why are our dwarves scrapping? Well, sir, have you heard of Crook? Dwarf mining law, said Vimes. Well done, sir. But it's a lot more than that. It's about how you live. Laws of ownership, marriage laws, inheritance, rules for dealing with disputes of all kinds, that sort of thing. Everything, really. And the Low King, well, you could call him the final court of appeal. He's advised, of course, but he's got the last word. Still with me? Makes sense so far. And he is crowned on the scone of stone and sits on it to give his judgments, because all the Low Kings have done that ever since Brian Bloodaxe. 1,500 years ago. It gives authority. Vimes nodded dourly. That made sense too. You did something because it had always been done, and the explanation was, but we've always done it this way. 1 million dead people can't have been wrong, can they? Does he get elected, or born, or what? He said. I suppose you could say he's elected, said Carrot. But really, a lot of senior dwarves arrange it among themselves. After listening to other dwarves, of course. Taking soundings, it's called. Traditionally, he's from one of the big families. But, yes. Things are a little different this year. Tempers are a bit stretched. Ah, thought Vimes. Wrong dwarf won, he said. Some dwarves would say so, but it's more that the whole process has been called into question, said Carrot, by the dwarves in the biggest dwarf city outside Uberwald. Don't tell me. That must be the place hub wards of... It's Ankh-Morpork, sir. What? We're not a dwarf city. 50,000 dwarves now, sir. Really? Yes, sir. Are you sure? Yes, sir. Of course he is, Vimes thought. He probably knows them all by name. You have to understand, sir, that there's a sort of big debate going on, said Carrot, on how you define a dwarf. Well, some people might say that they're called dwarves because... No, sir. Not size. Nobby Nobbs is shorter than many dwarves, and we don't call him a dwarf. We don't call him a human either, said Vimes. And, of course, I am also a dwarf. You know, Carrot, I keep meaning to talk to you about that. Adopted by dwarves, brought up by dwarves, to dwarves I'm a dwarf, sir. I can do the rite of Kazakhra. I know the secrets of Haragna. I can Hulk my Garachna correctly. I am a dwarf. What do those things mean? I'm not allowed to tell non-dwarves. Carrot tactfully tried to stand out of the way of the cigar smoke. Unfortunately, some of the mountain dwarves think that dwarves who've moved away aren't proper dwarves either. But this time, the kingship has been swung by the views of the Ankh-Morpork dwarves, and a lot of dwarves back home don't like it. There's been a lot of bad feeling all round. Families falling out, that sort of thing. Much pulling of beards. Really? Vimes tried not to smile. It's not funny if you're a dwarf. Sorry. And I'm afraid this new low king is only going to make matters worse. Although, of course, I wish him well. Tough, is he? I think you can assume, sir, that any dwarf who rises sufficiently in dwarf society to even be considered as a candidate for the kingship did not get there by singing the hi-ho song and bandaging wounded animals in the forest, but by dwarf standards. King Ryson is a modern thinker, although I hear he doesn't like Ankh-Morpork very much. Sounds like a very clear thinker too. Anyway, this has upset a lot of the more traditional mountain dwarves who thought the next king would be Albertson, who is not a modern thinker. He thinks even coming up above ground is dangerously non-dwarfish. Vimes sighed. Well, I can see there's a problem, Carrot. But the thing about this problem, the key point, is that it's not mine. Or yours, dwarf or not. He tapped the scone's case. Replica, eh? He said. Sure it's not the real one? Sir, there is only one real scone. We call it the thing and the whole of the thing. Well, if it's a good replica, who'd know? Any dwarf would, sir. Only joking. There was a hamlet down there, where two rivers met. There would be boats. This was working. The slopes behind him were white and free of dark shapes. No matter how good they were, let them try to outswim a boat. Hard, packed snow crunched under his feet. He staggered past the few rough hovels, saw the jetty, saw the boats, fought with the frozen rope that moored the nearest one, grabbed an oar and pushed himself out into the current. There was still no movement on the hills. Now, at last, he could take stock. It was a bigger boat than one man could handle, but all he had to do was fend off the banks. That'd do for tonight. In the morning, he could leave it somewhere, perhaps ask someone to get a message through to the tower, and then he'd buy a horse and... Behind him, under the tarpaulin in the bows, something started to growl. They really were very clever.